Waka Waka, Garangaree.
And where do those people live?
They live in Australia. They live in Queensland. Well, King of Waka Waka is around the Bunja Mountains, around Maryborough, around Bundaberg, around Gladstone, the many peaks. These mountains are all part of my people's lands. And Garangaree, which married into my father, was Garangaree. He come from north, Wollabinda way. But his father was an Englishman. He was an half-caste, what was called that. But him and my grandmother, Granny Effie, were full-blood from the Garangaree, were shot down on a drunken trooper blackfellow shoot. They were ridden down on horses in front of their kids, who were hit in an anthill. That's our family picture. An anthill with black faces looking out, scared, little children, while men on horseback in police uniforms and whatever, and the drunken louts from the pubs with their jugs in their hand and their rifles shooting down my grandparents. These assholes. Are they going to pay for that?
And the Waka Waka people are famous artists, many artists?
We have a lot of good culture.
Culture?
We have a lot of good culture. We have a lot of powerful spirits. We are known everywhere.
And they're strong even despite all this genocide?
Oh, all the genocide. See, because what they tried to kill was a race of people. But they forget there's only one race of people that walk this planet, and that's the human race. And wherever human are, good humans who treat humans as human beings will survive over inhumanity towards men. These despots, these people who come and start things and die, and other people who pick up their cudgels, because it's a system, not the man, that we have to defeat.
This luxurious Melbourne home is a fairy tale come true for 3 Aboriginal girls from Melville Island, 180 miles from Darwin. Mr. and Mrs. Deutscher visited the island last year and adopted 3 Aborigines to bring up with their own 3 children. Christine is 4, and for the first time in her life she has a mother and father. 2-year-old Faye was rescued by a territory policeman who found her abandoned. They've been cared for by the Methodist Mission, and now they live in a 15-room mansion. Mr. Deutscher says he believes it's possible to integrate Aboriginals into white families. Christine certainly seems to be proving that Mr. Deutscher is right, and so does Faye. It's all so new to them, and they're still a little wide-eyed. A long way from Melville Island, but at last a home and the love and affection of a family of their own. Sleep tight, children, because you know that dreams do come true, don't you?
It's really hard to say what ratio of Aboriginal people were taken away from their families. The best way to put it, I suppose, is that every Aboriginal family has been affected some way by removal policies. I mean, for example, some children may have been taken away, others stayed home with their parents. I know in my own Aboriginal family, there's people that have been taken away.
What that produced was a whole series of generations, which has now become known as the Stolen Generations, who were subject to terrible abuse in those institutions and in those families. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, intellectual abuse. And aside from those horrors, it also meant that being removed from their communities, they lost their links with their families, with their cultures, with their communities, with their land. They suffered on a variety of different levels, huge loss.
The Stolen Generations were taken away from their families basically since first colonisation of Australia. Late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a real focus on taking kids away from their family, particularly lighter coloured skinned children, so they could sort of be blended into the Australian society, so to speak. Reasons, it could be from anything. Sometimes they didn't even use a reason. They just came and took the children. Children that were fostered, when we find their parents, we often find that they were either fostered or adopted or were institutionalised, and it's it's transgenerational. We had one instance here where it was 5 generations of people have been removed, and particularly with the children that were brought up in institutions, they didn't get the parental skills and things like that. So when they have children of their own, they don't know how to deal with their children and things like that. It's transgenerational. Talk about the physical abuse that occurred to them, and just the food that they were given, the amount of work they had to do, and things like that. A lot of them to this day still have a lot of issues around the abuse, and because of what happened to them in the home, drug and alcohol issues as well. And I mean, basically it was a form of brainwashing. I mean, there was a man that worked here who went through one of the institutions, and when he did finally get his file, when he was about 40 to 50 years old, it stated that he was deceased. And so when he looked into it further, the Aboriginal Protection Board, it's called, actually drafted up that letter to show his father, so his father had stopped looking for him. And there's examples like that. And I mean, some Aboriginal people to this day will still cross to the other side of the road if they see another Aboriginal person, because that's the way they were brought up in the homes. You know, it's terrible to be Aboriginal, and that your family don't want you anymore. So when you leave here, you'll be able to go out and blend in with the normal Australian society.
The Aboriginal Tent Embassy come from this area in Sydney, went to Canberra 30 years ago and set up their embassy at the front of Parliament House. The reason why they did that is because land rights was not really recognised. The opposition to the Prime Minister at the time went and met with them. He said, if I get voted in, I'll change the laws. He did get voted in, he tried to make the change, and then the Queen's representative in Australia sacked him.
One of the things that has happened all along has been the legislation put in place by government to start a federation, and with all of that, it's been a policy of protection of Aboriginal people, and the protection literally meant controlling them completely. It's changed over the years, but then again we look at it in time and we see that amendments have been made to acts, changes have been made, but in essence little has changed.